Hello everyone, and I'm Autobot Sonic the Telltale Gamer, bringing the latest and everything Telltale games, Transformers, and more. Here we are again, back with another Transformers Cyberverse review, and I gotta say, I mean so much to, I know these Season 3 reviews and, like, the rest of Season 2 haven't gotten the most amount of views again, because it's obviously been, like, a year now since Cyberverse Season 3 came out, but honestly, though, for the few people who are watching, I know especially Jeremy Levy, you're watching, and it was meant a lot to me after seeing you shout out my reviews on your Cyberverse signing stream yesterday, so thank you so much for that. But it really means the world to me for the few of you, like in the single double digits who are watching these reviews, and hopefully they blow up a little bit over the next couple months, because I'm kind of pushing these out like every other day, so I understand like it'll take some time for them to actually garner some decent views. But anyway, for today's review of Transformers Cyberverse, we're going to be looking at Season 3, Episode 7, The Prisoner, and Episode 8, The Citizen. And honestly, these episodes got, do a lot of cool revelations about the whole world of Cyberverse as a whole, but also gives us some nice little character interactions, and also fleshes out one character that we've seen a little bit of earlier this season, but now we've gotten like a full proper introduction to them, and I gotta say, I'm a huge fan of them. So honestly, I think these, with the exception of the Battle for Cybertron arc, if I want to call this like the Loop arc or the Quintesson arc of Cyberverse Season 3, this is probably my favorite two episodes of the Loop arc so far. So we're gonna go ahead and see everything these episodes did right and what they did wrong. So this episode starts off immediately after the events of the last episode, The Dead End, where we saw Hot Rod, Perceptor, Dead End, and Clobber all make it to Maccadam's to find that he's still alive. So now everyone's just relaxing, Maccadam's just having some energon, while Hot Rod is just just still being a Debbie Downer, as this edgy Hot Rod now is, just like unsure of what he's going to do. So eventually, he gets into an argument with Dead Ends where looks like they're going to start fighting, but then Maccadam breaks it up, which is, again, nice little callback to Season 1, where we saw that was like the one rule that Maccadam has, and we saw that he like transforms into something apparently really scary, to the point where it even scared Megatron back in Season 1. So, but we still don't know yet what exactly Maccadam turns into, so hopefully that's going to be, considering these two episodes are focused heavily on Maccadam, we may get a reveal as to what Maccadam transforms into later on this season. So anyway, as after the fight, Hot Rod is just so like frustrated with Dead End and no one listening to him, so he just decides to go ahead and he's going to go back to Loop before he gets stopped by Perceptor, who basically tries to motivate Hot Rod to be more of a leader type character and just not give up so easily. And this is something that's really cool that I really like to see, how even though this again harkening back to Lost Light and Mortal Meets the Eye Rodimus, with that I'm getting a lot of flashbacks from Lost Light Rodimus in Cyberverse Hot Rod this season, considering that yes, Hot Rod is a leader now, but for lack of better terms, he kind of sucks at being a leader. He can't get anyone to listen to him. He just sucks at giving orders. And I mean that with an endearing term. I'm not saying that like it's bad that Hot Rod sucks at being a leader. This is a great like thing for Hot Rod to develop as a character, and I'm sure by the end of this Quintesson arc, he's actually going to become a really good leader. So, but it just reminds me a lot of Mortal Meets the Eye and Lost Lights Rodimus, where again he started out as this leader, thinking that he was a hot shot, that he could do anything, but then he ended up getting so many people killed, being a horrible leader, and after learning some humility and going through a really edgy phase like this Hot Rod's going through, he managed to like mature a bit and become like a proper leader. And I gotta say also, shout out to Jeremy Levy for playing like Perceptor in this scene, because I really enjoy like the tone that Perceptor gives to Hot Rod. And I actually Jeremy Levy actually talked about this a bit in the Cyberverse Q&A streaming that went on yesterday, and I'm even though this is going to be uploaded on the 11th, the stream happened back on the 9th, I'm recording this the day after the stream. So Jeremy Levy talked about this a bit during the stream there. He based his Perceptor voice a little bit off of Spock from Star Trek, mixed with a bit of Kevin Conroy's Batman, and honestly, after hearing him say that and listening to it a bit more in this episode, especially how he mentioned that this scene was one of his favorites to record as Perceptor, I can totally see it. So like here, I'll just put a little clip of like him talking about that experience right now for any of you to listen to.
Perceptor, I want to say, was the hardest character in general to nail. We had to find just the right cross-section. We knew from the beginning that we didn't want him to be like a disembodied computer voice, even though like sometimes he can like kind of come across that way. So it was very hard to like find the humanity, so to speak, in Perceptor. But also he is very logical. He's very methodical. He's very even-keeled. So I sort of started with Spock to find that kind of character who was very logical, but also, you know, did have sort of some gradations. So I ended up mixing him with like, he's a little bit Spock. He's a little bit the Doctor from Doctor Who. Also talking to May when I was asking her about Perceptor, and she was like, he needs to be a badass. So I took those and sort of added just a hair of Batman. I ripped off a little bit of Kevin Conroy, just a little bit. And then the scene where he's talking to Hot Rod in season 3, and he's trying to motivate Hot Rod to be a leader, where he says to him, he goes, "We need a leader." It's really hard to find a way to make Perceptor impassioned,
right,
but also still even-keeled,
right.
To make him human and vulnerable, but sort of keep him with that wall that is still up, where you still don't always know where he's coming from. And I remember going over that scene over and over again and trying to hit each one of those points and really get them to sing in a way that was impactful, because that was a really important scene. You know, that was the scene that sort of sets Hot Rod off onto the rest of his journey.
So yeah, honestly, like, with this one scene, I can totally tell that, like, Perceptor, he definitely is a very mature character, but the way Jeremy Lee plays him, he's not totally soulless, and I do appreciate that about some Perceptors, but honestly, with Cyberverse Perceptor, I'm glad he does have a little bit of emotion and humanity to him, which is ironic considering he's a robot, but still, like, humanizing all these Cyberverse characters, I really enjoy how they're doing it to the point where they're so strong as characters on their own, we don't really need a human character to basically to have the audience relate to more than the actual Transformers, and I really, really appreciate that. So, anyway, I'm done basically gushing about how awesome Jeremy Lee is as Perceptor. So, but anyway, Hot Rod decides to go ahead and take some Perceptor's words for like the exact wrong way, thinking that when he thinks that they need a leader, he doesn't think, oh, just Hot Rod needs to step up to the plate to be a leader. Hot Rod just thinks instead that he just needs to get Optimus and that he can be a better leader than him. So he runs off to go back to the loop area to go ahead and try and free Optimus. And honestly, literally after having just played 12 minutes like a week ago, all I can think of just watching Hot Rod go through this loop several dozens of times to try and convince Optimus that he's in the loop and help him break out of it. It really, really feels like he's just like just playing through 12 minutes. You're just getting more and more frustrated, trying the same things over and over again, and it just doesn't work. So honestly, I really, really love this. Like, it starts off with just Hot Rod trying to make his way to Optimus quickly, and he goes through the same things always, just bumping past Bumblebee and Grimlock, passing RC who's taking a selfie of herself, grabbing a foam finger from Rack and Ruin, stopping Whirl, or trying to stop Whirl from getting hit by the cube that falls off the parade, and then finally making his way to Optimus to try and convince him. So the first time, he just tries to say, like, that tell Optimus to wake up and that none of this is real, but Optimus doesn't seem to be having that, and then just the loop resets. He tries again and goes a little bit faster. This time he just bumps past Bumblebee and Grimlock instead of just dodging them. He ends up trying to take a selfie with RC, see if that changes anything, maybe break her out of the loop, grabs another foam figure from Rack and Ruin. This time he's the one who ends up getting crushed by the cube instead of Whirl, so that causes him to slow him down, and that makes the loop reset. And it just goes on and on and on, going through the same stuff, bumping into Bumblebee and Grimlock, going past RC taking a selfie, Whirl gets crushed by the cube, tries to talk to Optimus again, every single time, until eventually at one point, Hot Rod, just like me playing 12 minutes, snaps, and just decides to destroy everything. He just tackles Bumblebee and Grimlock, he runs past RC, ruining her selfie, flips over all the foam fingers. The one thing, though, he does manage to do is actually save Whirl from the loop accidentally, so he ends up going through shoving past Whirl and just shouts at him to move out of the way. So when the cube comes down, Whirl instinctively transforms to escape, to dodge the cube, and therefore he's out of loop, but Hot Rod doesn't notice yet. He's just so focused on getting to Optimus, and so he ends up wrecking the whole parade and going to him and trying to get him to wake up from the loop. But when Optimus actually calls Hot Rod by his name and punches him, Hot Rod actually believes that he's actually finally gone through to Optimus, and when he actually states that he remembers Hot Rod constantly from all the other loops, Hot Rod finally thinks that he's actually gone through to Optimus, but then he just goes back to the whole like shtick, like the whole basically his usual script that he has throughout all the different loops. And so Hot Rod just so frustrated at this point that he just can't, no matter what he does, can't get Optimus to get through. Meanwhile, while this is all happening, we have a nice little side plot with Perceptor, Clobber, and Dead End, where Maccadam just vanishes for some reason, so because Perceptor wants to go ahead and try and talk to him when he makes some big discovery about Maccadam's, but he can't find him because Dead End says that he went down out into the cellar to get more energon for them. So Perceptor instead decides to go ahead and try testing a theory of his, which is to why the Quintessons are unable to notice them at Maccadam's. So Perceptor just steps outside Maccadam's while Dead End and Clobber look at him all confused, when all of a sudden, he starts screaming, telling the Quintessons to come and attack him, and so Dead End and Clobber are just super scared now, thinking that the Quintessons are going to get them, and so when one drone comes out and tries to attack Perceptor, he just takes a step backwards inside Maccadam's, and the Quintesson just stops at the door, just seemingly not able to find Perceptor. So that proves that his hypothesis, where essentially the entire Maccadam's establishment is apparently stuck with protected by some sort of cloaking device, and as we'll learn later on in episode 8, the Citizen, there's a really nice thing about this. So basically, after this, Clobber finally notices that Hot Rod's gone, and so when Dead End tells her that that Hot Rod left to go try and save Optimus, Clobber is honestly really like angry by this, and this actually goes out after her. And I gotta say, I did not expect Clobber to care so much about Hot Rod. I mean, we know that she was the first one that Hot Rod saved from the loop, and that the two of them alongside Perceptor have been apparently attempting this whole break out of the loop thing for quite a while. But it's nice to see that we actually have we're actually getting more character development from Clobber, where she was essentially just a comic relief character that you only see like for 1 second in every episode back in season 2. Now that she's her own actual character, I really enjoy this. So after Clobber goes out to go and save Hot Rod, that's kind of where the two plot lines converge, where essentially after Hot Rod basically ruins the parade in the last-ditch effort to try and get Optimus to finally understand him. When that fails, Hot Rod suddenly pulled out a loop because he's getting taken by the Quintessons, since Clobber wasn't there to watch over him while he's in the loop. And it looks like, despite while he's trying as hard as he can to break out, it looks like he's actually going to get captured again, until Clobber comes to his rescue by using like these big like power gauntlets she's got kind of built into her hands to like punch apart the Quintessons. And I know we saw a bit of this back in earlier episodes, and there was even a point that mentioned back when Hot Rod and Clobber were looking around for the second cortical psychic patch in Shockwave's lab back in the Dead End, that she mentioned that Shockwave experimented on her for a bit. And I guess we can chalk that up to how Clobber has these like enhanced like power punches that Shockwave maybe like augmented her in some way. But it's also, again, really cool to see Clobber finally get the spotlight after being relegated to essentially a joke character through all of season 2. And again, shout out to Saskia Marks, I think, is the voice actress for Clobber. She does a great job of voicing her this episode. But anyway, Clobber finally manages to save Hot Rod from the drones, and Hot Rod just feeling totally like broken at this point, where he feels like that not only is he stuck as a leader, he can't even save Optimus or anyone from the loop. And just as another Quintesson drone's about to come in and attack both Hot Rod and Clobber, it's suddenly shot down by Whirl, who managed to find his way over after Hot Rod accidentally freed him from the loop. And I gotta say, we'll see more of Whirl in episode 8, but honestly, I love Cyberverse Whirl, because even though he looks just like More Than Meets the Eye in Lost Light World, he's totally different from, like, again, Jeremy Levy talked about this in the Cyberverse stream yesterday, because, fun fact, Jeremy Levy, once again, is the voice of Whirl, and unlike his Perceptor role, or Jetfire roles, which are very, very unique from his Bumblebee voice, Whirl to me just sounds like Bumblebee voice, but on total like ADHD. He's super loud, he won't stop talking in like a very loud way, and honestly, as someone who finds himself just constantly talking loudly when I get really excited about stuff, that's honestly, I'm so glad to see like a character I can relate to like that in the form of Whirl, because Jeremy Levy absolutely kills it as a really hyperactive Whirl compared to the really psychotic Whirl we had in More Meets the Eye. And honestly, with how Whirl acts in episode 8 too, I really am glad to have him join Hot Rod, Clobber, Dead End, Perceptor, and Maccadam as sort of like this main group of like anti-Quintesson resistance force that I'm really excited to see evolve throughout the course of these next couple episodes. So anyway, after Whirl saves Hot Rod from the loop, he ends up the three of them end up going back to Maccadam's, where they still discover that Maccadam is in fact still missing. So while they get back, Perceptor basically relays his big discovery to Hot Rod and Whirl, where he learns that essentially the reason why none of the Quintessons are able to detect anyone when they're inside Maccadam's is because Maccadam's is actually part of a huge titan that is buried under Cybertron, and that's essentially the big cliffhanger for this episode, which leads us into the plot of the next episode, episode 8, The Citizen. So for episode 7, The Sleeper, I'm gonna give this episode a 9 out of 10. Honestly, a really, really fun episode to see Hot Rod just constantly mess up with the loop to the point where he just has had enough and decides to ruin everything in the hopes of getting to Optimus. Great development points from Whirl, Clobber, and Perceptor. That Jeremy Levy does a great job as Perceptor in Whirl's episode. Saskia Marks kills it as Clobber. Even Dead End has a nice few quips with Perceptor and Hot Rod throughout this episode that I really enjoyed as well. And the whole mystery about Maccadam's being part of this huge titan that's buried underground, I'm really excited to look more into, and we'll see that again with the mystery being revealed in the next episode, episode 8, The Citizen. Now moving on to The Citizen, this episode starts off with a huge flashback to even before the war for Cybertron, or even just anywhere on Cybertron for that matter. It starts with Maccadam surrounded by a bunch of other different colored Maccadams battling this weird alien bug race, and it seems like that they're actually getting overwhelmed by them until the huge titan that we saw Perceptor discover that Maccadam is a part of, it basically comes in and destroys all the alien bug things. And so Maccadam and all the other Maccadam lookalikes are chanting the titan's name, which we know is Iaconus, which I guess, assuming that's essentially going to be basically how the entire city of Iacon is this titan named Iaconus that just no one has apparently believed to be existing until now. Then anyway, though, that flashes forward back to the present, where we see, again, Perceptor just telling Hot Rod and everyone again about how Maccadam's is part of this titan. And so Hot Rod's confused by how this can help when Perceptor reveals that the reason why the Quintessons are unable to detect any someone inside Maccadam's is because the titan does possess some sort of cloaking field, that if they can go down there and take the cloaking field from inside the titan, they'll be able to Perceptor will be able to basically replicate it so that everyone can have one, and that way they'll be able to free people from the loop more efficiently. So that eventually spurs everyone on to go ahead and try and figure out how to get inside the Titan, where Clobber directs everyone to basically a back door that she's seen Maccadam use before. And after punching a hole in the wall, discovers a secret elevator that goes down deeper into the Titan. So it's really funny here. We see there's this really one funny scene in here when they're all trying to fit in the elevator because it's really cramped. First Clobber, Dead End, and Whirl end up getting in, and then Hot Rod just tries to squeeze in between all of them. And Whirl eventually gets to at some point that he apparently Whirl's like really claustrophobic, which honestly is really cute in a way. That when Whirl gains smushed, I think it's between Hot Rod and Clobber, to the point where he just, out of anxiety, I guess, instantly just transforms in the middle of all of them. And honestly, I think this like happened a few times in the Bumblebee movie and in other shows, that when a Transformer gets like really scared or just nervous, they just transform out of instinct as sort of, I guess, a defense mechanism. And honestly, I always love when character would do this. I remember distinctly this happened in the Bumblebee movie, I think, when Charlie and Bumblebee are practicing like trying to hide from humans, and so when someone comes coming, like he ends up just transforming into a car in the middle of Charlie's living room, and I just love that. But anyway, when Whirl does this, he ends up bumping into Dead End, who causes him to accidentally hit like the button on the elevator, causing him to send down all the way and leaving Perceptor behind, still on the ground floor of Maccadam's. So they're all going down through the elevator, floor by floor, probably hundreds of floors, until they come across this training room area. And again, this is where Hot Rod's basically ineptitude as a leader comes back in, where he tries to direct Whirl, Dead End, and Clobber not to touch anything. But eventually, when they see a bunch of weapons pop out from all the walls in this big arena-like area, everyone goes out to go and grab one, despite Hot Rod not wanting them to. But eventually they realize over an intercom that apparently it's a training room, and they start off fighting one single enemy that Dead End just dispatches easily, but that's only the first wave. And so they end up going through like several rooms, eventually like over 500 rooms, where we get this quick montage of Hot Rod, Whirl, Clobber, and Dead End just battling all these these drones that resemble the alien bug things that Maccadam and all the other Maccadam lookalikes fought back in the flashback. Eventually gets to the point where, after going through 500 levels of these same enemies, they're just like totally exhausted at this point. So Hot Rod tries calling Perceptor for help, and as they get to, I think it's like the 505th floor or something like that, and just as they're about to get killed by all the drones, which honestly is a little bit alarming considering that a training drone system has drones that are programmed to kill the people training, but whatever. Perceptor manages to eventually shut down all of the drones and comes out for some reason with his right arm ripped off and holding it in his other arm, stating that he ran into some sort of beast on one of the upper levels. And again, I don't know why they had decide to have Perceptor lose his arm in this scene. I don't understand. Like, there's no point in this whole episode where just Perceptor is unable to do something because he's missing an arm. They only do it like for a joke in this episode. So I really don't see the point in Perceptor losing an arm in this episode, considering he just puts it back on at the very end of this episode. So that's just like that's like the one biggest con I have this episode. It's not like a whole point off con, but it's just something that just irks me in my opinion. So after saving Hot Rod, Clobber, Dead End, and Whirl from the training area, Perceptor leads them all down to what seems to be some sort of stasis hangar, similar to the one that was on the Ark back in seasons 1 and 2. And so Hot Rod and everyone's just trying to check out all the pods, see if there's anyone actually still inside a Titan, but all the pods are totally empty. Eventually, though, they're interrupted by a giant monster, like this big, like crocodile alligator thing that essentially attacks them. And at first, like, it ends up like grabbing Clobber and like just like nearly completely eating her. So I literally thought that we were gonna see Clobber die, and part of me was really hoping not, because I was really just growing to like Clobber's character, but thankfully not. Hot Rod and the others were able to save Clobber from the beast and manage to ward it off eventually, to the point where they do escape the stasis hangar and make their way down to this other area, which does have the cloaking module for the Titan. But as soon as the Hot Rod's about to take it out, Maccadam just pops out from like a hallway, like just super creepy, where he tells Hot Rod not to do it because apparently the second he does it, everyone will be caught by the Quintessence and they'll all go back to the loop. And this is like a pretty cool way to call back again to another thing of Maccadam's that we were known for back in season 1, which was his ability to presumably see the future, where we saw this happen a lot back in episode 10 Maccadam's, which again seems to be an episode that a lot of things are having flashbacks to throughout this entire series. Anyway, during this, Maccadam essentially states that if they take it out, they'll all be sent back to the loop, because the Quintessence will be able to notice them. So Hot Rod at this point, along with Perceptor, questioned Maccadam exactly of why didn't he tell them that there was a Titan under Maccadam's. And Maccadam essentially just gives the whole spiel confirming that the Titan is in fact Iaconus, which was a war class Titan and one of the most powerful Titans all ever created. So here Maccadam gives the backstory of Iaconus, stating that he and several other Maccadam lookalikes were citizens living on Iaconus, hence the name of this episode, The Citizen, and eventually they basically went around fighting wars on other planets, though eventually got to the point where there was peace on Cybertron, but Iaconus went mad with having no war to fight, so essentially he started just attacking all of Cybertron, and all of its citizens went back to fight against Iaconus and managed to defeat it, with the catch, though, being that Maccadam was the sole survivor of all the other people who lived on Iaconus. So basically Maccadam just kind of made a vow to be the sole protector of Iaconus, making sure that no one would wake Iaconus up ever again, because if he did, he tells Hot Rod that he would be able to destroy the Quintessence, but then all Cybertron would be destroyed as well. So seeming to hear that, Hot Rod seems to decide not to go ahead and wake up Iaconus, so Maccadam leads all the whole resistance force back up to Maccadam's, where Perceptor fixes up his arm, and just everything seems to be back to normal. So I thought, like, okay, so what was the point of this episode then, if they just decide to go ahead and not wake up Iaconus? Until the very, very end of this episode, where we just see Perceptor and Hot Rod sitting at a booth talking to each other, just with Perceptor questioning Hot Rod as to what he thinks he's going to do next. And Hot Rod states that despite what Maccadam said, he still has the full intention of waking up Iaconus, using him to kill all the Quintessons, which, wow, if we're going to have some sort of big conflict where Hot Rod's going to lead all the the Autobot resistance forces against Maccadam in an effort to wake Iaconus. I could totally see this being some sort of big thing where Hot Rod and everyone, they end up waking up Iaconus and defeating Maccadam, and Iaconus does end up destroying all the Quintessons, but then Iaconus does go mad, and it's up to all the Autobots and Decepticons to work together to take down Iaconus, and maybe that's going to be the last arc of Season 3. That would be really cool if that's the case, but we'll have to wait and see, because this is going to be really, really cool. So that was my review of Transformers Cyberverse Season 3, Episode 7, The Sleeper, and Episode 8, The Citizen. If I had to rate The Citizen, I would probably give it a 9.5 out of 10. Definitely better than The Sleeper. We got some really good revelations about Maccadam, his backstory, how he was a citizen of Iaconus, and just why Iaconus is so powerful. We got some really good scenes with Whirl, Clobber, Hot Rod, and Dead End all working together. The only thing, though, again, that just, I don't see any reason for why Perceptor had to lose his arm, aside from just a little throwaway gag. And other than that, the plan, seemingly, that Hot Rod's just going to go against Maccadam and try to wake up Iaconus anyway, it's something that I'm really interested to see. Like, will Perceptor, Dead End, and Whirl all go along with it? Or is there going to be some sort of people who don't agree with it or not? I have no idea, but I'm really excited to see where it goes. So that's going to be for these episodes. I'll be back soon with Episode 9, The Trial, and Episode 10, The Prisoner. If you like these reviews, like, comment, and of course subscribe, and I will see you guys later. Take it away, Bumblebee.
Bumblebee out.
And I might know what our future, but then you still control the past.